Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Well, today I got a really cool little 1/14 scale RC car I want to take a look at. This is the Wltoys or XK. XK is the Wltoys in premium brand, you could say. This is a 14401 is this model number. Really nicely built brushed buggy. This is not brushless, but we'll discuss how I think a brushless upgrade would be pretty easy in this guy. But it is really well constructed. Now, one thing I want to say now so I don't forget is you'll see during the driver view, one of the wheel nuts does fall off. I think it's this wheel, and the wheel falls off. It makes it look really bad, but all it was is the nut just probably wasn't secured totally tight at the factory, and they give you a wheel, a nut wrench over there that you can tighten them back on if you don't have one of those. So it was a really easy fix. I just hand tightened it out in the field, but it still, when I got home, had to be tightened more. But just keep that in mind. If you do purchase this buggy, as you should with any RC car, make sure you check the wheel nuts. I just forgot to do it, so it's partially my fault. But it's really well built otherwise, besides that nut falling off, which really isn't a big deal. Like I said, it's got these metal shock towers. The shocks themselves feel metal, and these are oil-filled shocks. Nice dampened shocks, which makes a huge difference in how well it jumps and lands, and it's just overall stability compared to friction shocks. It's a bit dirty because, as you can see, I just mentioned I already drove it. There's a bunch of grass inside of here just at that time of the year. I don't have the top secured on with the pin so I can pull it off easier, so I'm going to go ahead and just take it off here while we're looking at it. Set it off to the side. Try to back it away from the camera a bit. You got nice metal dog bones and metal drive shafts. You got a red aluminum looking drive shaft from the front to the rear. Really nice servo steering here that works really well. Just really nice parts they chose for this thing. Though obviously I wish it was brushless, but you can't complain too much about brushed, especially at this price point, because I believe this buggy runs around $80, which is not bad when you're getting full ball bearings and all this metal. Because look at the bottom, you've got a metal tray here on the bottom. I mean, this is not going to be easy to break, and that's great because it is pretty quick. It's listed at 60 kilometers per hour, so it's pretty fast. I don't know the math in my head for the miles per hour, but maybe if I remember, I'll put the miles per hour up here. But I don't believe it's going to be as quick as advertised, but I think it's 30-ish miles an hour probably is what I've seen to me. And on the drive test, it is a bit noisy with all these metal parts. It's a little bit of a noisy car, but it has pretty good power, and it's pretty quick, and I could do some jumps with it. Pretty neat. Like I said, I really am impressed with this little car. Nice little car by Wltoys and XK. Of course, here's the big brushed 540 motor. Looks a lot like the kind of motors you used to get with all your Tamiya builds back. In fact, they probably still include them. Just a big 540 brushed motor, which when you're running on 2S LiPo, you get good speed out of that compared to years ago where you're running off a 6-cell nickel cadmium pack. It didn't get near the speed as this one. Here is the your brushed ESC and receiver combo, and here's a little steering servo. It's a miniature, smaller one, but again, it works really well. Bullet connectors to the 540 brush motor, which is a pretty common connection method for those, and a Dean's plug for the battery, which is nice. That uses a nice hobby grade type plug and not like an old Tamiya plug or something like that. So if you wanted to go brushless on this, I don't see why it'd be a problem. I think the gears are probably going to be pretty good for it as long as you keep it on 2S. Just got to take this big motor out, and you can put a 540 size brushless motor in. You need a little brushless ESC. You can find, if you're willing to buy an off-brand one, a Ghoul RC or some of the other ones, you can pick them up sometimes as cheap as 30 bucks for the motor and the ESC. And an ESC brushless little ones at that price are not going to be real good, but they should be okay on 2S. And that's all you need to do that, and you'll need obviously a transmitter and a receiver if you want to go up to brushless kit to replace this. So I plan on doing that. I've got a brushless motor and brushless ESC out of my FS racing truck I'm going to throw in it, and then I'll either throw the receiver and use that transmitter from it, or I think I may have one coming from Radio Link and I'll use that pistol grip controller and receiver with this instead. Here is the battery pack. It's going to be, I don't think we're going to be able to see this. I had a hard time reading it just with my eyes up close, but this is a 1500 milliamp 2S LiPo pack, of course, with the Dean's plug and your balance plug. I did not use the provided charger because it's going to be slow and probably not as accurate. It's just a hobby grade, so I used my Sky RC IMAX charger to charge this up. You know, so you can charge this at 2C or 3 amps and charge it pretty quick compared to your stock charger, which is right here. This is just a little 2S balance port charger that runs on USB, so it's going to be slow. You're going to take hours to charge this if you use the provided charger, because you're charging off of a USB port, which is, you know, really low amps. You also get this little plastic wheel wrench, which I did use. I would, if you have a Tamiya one around, should be the same. It looks just like the old Tamiya 4-in-1 wrenches, and this tends to kind of strip off if you pull it, if you try to twist it too hard, because it's just plastic. So if you have a metal one, that's what I prefer to use. But if you don't, this will get the job done. You can still securely check the nuts on the car or put one back on if it falls off. Here is the instruction manual. I've not really even looked over this, but it's just going to be a basic manual as you expect from Wltoys. It does have an exploded view here in the back to help you out with taking it apart or assembling it if you have to put it back together, and that's always nice that they do include that. And here is the controller, which looks a lot like the controllers Wltoys used in the past. So I think this one feels a little smaller to me than the one I had with my previous Wltoys. It has your steering and your throttle trims here. I did have to adjust the steering because it was way out of whack whenever I got it. Probably the knobs were just bumped. And here is your on and off switch. Here's some modes it says here. I'm not sure if that looks more like a binding button. I'm not exactly sure on that. And here's your steering, which is a really nice foam grip. So it really, I really thought this was comfortable, more so than my older ones that have that style. And of course your forward and reverse and your brake. And I think it takes four AA batteries here in the bottom. So again, a nice little buggy. Really nice high quality parts. Seems to be built pretty good. Obviously I had the wheel come off, but that's, you know, again, it wasn't a big deal. It looked a lot worse than it actually was when that happened. It's like, oh my God, but it just, the nut fell off, that's it. And you know, it's a cool looking car. I really like the look of those, of the wheels and the hubcaps there, the plastic wheels and the tires, I should say. They're not hubcaps actually. Hubcaps would pop off. Poor choice of words on my part. The wheels and the tires, all the metal pieces. Really nice little RC car that's really affordable. I think this is going to be a big hit, a big seller, like the A959 A and B cars were. They were quick, pretty well built, though not as well built as this, and cheap. This is sort of like, I would say, an upgrade to that, except for this is bigger. This is 1/14 scale, where I think those were like 1/18 scale. So this is a little more controllable. Those are get really skittish, those cars are, especially if you didn't do a few upgrades. I always had trouble keeping them in a straight line, where this was way easier to drive. All right guys, that wraps up the table review for the Wltoys /XK 14401 buggy. Let's move along now outside for that driver view at the park, so be right back. Alright guys, so let's take the Wltoys buggy out now for its test drive. Now this is the Wltoys /XK. The box says XK. Most websites I've seen this on listed as Wltoys. Of course, that's because Wltoys owns XK. It's like their premium brand. The model number on this is a 14401. Has this big brushed 540 motor in here. On the other side, I've lifted up the wrong side up in here. 2S LiPo. This should be pretty quick. This will be my maiden drive on this. I didn't do anything more than trim up the steering here. All the metal shocks. This ought to be a pretty nice, and shouldn't be too difficult to upgrade this to brushless if you wish, which is one of my plans to do for a future video. So I've already got it bound up and ready to go, because it's really hard to reach that on and off switch with the top attached. It's right on top. It's an unfortunate spot. They have it up here. I can just barely get my finger up there to turn it on and off. So I already got it ready to go, as you guys can see here. Let's go ahead and take it out now for the test run here at the park. I'm trying to do it somewhere different than in front of my house, which is getting pretty boring. Wow, that's on a 2S LiPo. I expected, even with an old school 540 size brushed motor, it'd still be pretty quick, and it is. Now this is 1/14 scale, so it's a little smaller than your 1/12 and 1/10, but it's not as small as, whoa, it flipped over, like the Wltoys A959B buggy that I reviewed a couple years ago. It's like, I think that's a 1/18 scale. Thing's really tiny, and it can almost be uncontrollable with that 540 motor. But I like this decision to go a little larger on this, and of course all this metal. Look at that. I mean, it's going to be really hard to break this. For around $80, I think this thing is selling for. I mean, it looks like it's pretty nice, at least in build quality. Let's continue to drive it before we make a judgment on performance. It looks pretty quick though. I can only imagine how fast this would be on a brushless motor. Even, you know, it doesn't even have to be that high a kV. That's pretty quick. Of course, it's 4-wheel drive, all metal dog bones. That's pretty fast for a brushed motor. I would say that's probably got to be pretty close in speed to the little 1/16 brushless S-Max and Zenlong Q903 that I have. But I really always like the brushless power and how quick those accelerate over the brushed. But there's nothing wrong with a big 540 size brushed motor. But really, I mean, a brushless upgrade is not going to be terribly expensive. Though you do have to replace your transmitter and receiver, because this uses an ESC, brushed ESC slash receiver combo, which is really common in these cars. So you need to replace that really. So my plans are to put a brushless motor ESC out of my FS racing truck, which is broken, into this, and then either move the transmitter and receiver over to it from that, or I believe Radio Link may be sending me a pistol grip controller to test out, and if so, I'll use that instead, because that's going to be a much better controller and receiver than the FS racing truck. But you know, back years ago, we had these brushed motors of this size. In fact, some really fast ones. But you didn't have LiPo batteries. So you ran like a 7.2 volt 6-cell nickel cadmium compared to a fully charged 2S LiPo that's running at 8.4 volts. You can just see why. Even an old basic cheapo 540 brushed motor, it really moves with a 2S LiPo. Could you go 3S on this? I don't know if the brushed ESC can handle it. Probably can. You just have to worry about heat and that big brushed motor. Will it fry? Probably not, because we used to run 7-cell batteries, the nickel cadmiums, which would be let's see, would that be 7.2 plus 1.2, so that would be what, 8.4 volt packs, and they didn't have a problem, so I don't see any issue with that. But these are cheap motors, so you always have to worry about, is there any heat, burning out that big brushed motor. Yeah, I got it stuck on a root, that tree. We got some mud there on the tires. It's okay. I've not filmed the table review yet, so if you already watched the little table review and it looks a little dirty, it's because this is filmed before it. Yeah, this is nice. Really, it's under control. It's not super skittish on me. Though those tires, they're a little bit slick, but they have pretty good traction. But you can't spin out on the pavement a little bit, as you guys saw a while ago when I flipped it over. Runtime on this ought to be pretty good. I believe the LiPo was 1500 milliamp. So what I'm gonna do is go over here and see if I can jump this hill. I don't know if this car will be able to go fast enough to be able to jump it. This is where I filmed my Maximus, and of course, it's Maximus goes 40 miles an hour, and it's 1A scale, so Let's see if we can get, it is spinning out some on this grass. Whoa! And it's a little bit, we've had a lot of rain and it's been damp, so some of this water is, I'm going to trim the steering up and get a little bit of pulling to the right. It's spinning out a little on this water. Once you get going, you can see it's pretty good there, but that wet, because it's kind of damp grass. Whoa, nice. That's what I wanted to come over here and do. It's a little bit noisy, as you guys probably can hear. And that's those metal dog bones and metal drive shafts in the cups. There's a metal shaft between the front and rear gearboxes as well. All that stuff can be a bit noisy. It's a little bit more noisy on this one than probably some of them I've seen, but sometimes it's just a design. Sometimes they put those little rubber pieces in the cups and that kind of helps reduce the amount of play. We got quite a bit of leaves and a lot of junk and debris, as you can see, getting thrown all over it. So it's getting pretty dirty. I'm gonna have to, most of that stuff will fall off once it dries out. A lot of leaves and debris from the fall. As you can see, the trees here are turning. This is a few days before Halloween. Let's pull that leaf off. You can see here, nice bright orange and yellow leaf. Whoa! We just lost a tire. Now that's not good. What happened there, and here is the nut. We just simply have a nut come loose. Thankfully, that's not going to be a big deal. Nothing fell apart otherwise. What I'm going to have to do is get that tightened up. It's always a good idea, and I'm at fault here, to check the tightness on all these cars when you get them, especially these ones from over in China, because sometimes stuff does not get tightened up good enough. It just spun off and fell off. I've seen it happen in other cars before. People have told me, but I never actually had it happen to me before. But I've got it here in my hand and it just fell off. All you do is tighten it back up. So I'm not overly concerned about that, because I found the nut, and if not, I have ones like that at home. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can tighten it back on myself here. I don't have my tools with me though. Good enough to at least finish up this review, but I'll tighten it up. It gives you a wrench, a wheel wrench for these hex nuts, and it's in the package, but I don't have that with me. I just have the car in the box. So let me see if I can get this little nut tightened back on good enough to at least finish up this video. And then when I get home, I'll secure them. It'd probably be a good idea to put some blue Loctite on these. That'll make sure that it doesn't back off easily. So the vibrations and stuff work that off. So I'll be right back, guys. All right, guys, so I got a hand tightened back on there. It's going to be close to fully tightened. Obviously, it was not fully tightened. So if you do purchase this car, just be mindful of that. Take the little wrench and snug them up. You see, I got a spider coming off. I got all kinds of debris on this. It's really dirty. So hopefully I get this cleaned up enough before the table review. You know, I got leaf packed in here, and you guys can't see it right now. Here it is, just leaf all smushed in here, and just a lot of debris, you know, getting caught up in it. It's just this time of year. So hopefully I can get all this stuff pulled out before the table review. I want to do that later, but I have to take a paper towel and something to get a lot of this debris off. But let's go ahead and drive it a little bit more, and we'll end this, this video. We should be fine. Thankfully I found the nut. It was laying right next to it. But like I said, this stuff can happen. It was my fault for not checking that before I drove it. So let's go ahead and set it down and take it out. Now, it just spun off. I said it probably was not fully snug tight. And a lot of torque is put on that when you're steering and giving it throttle. It's really pushing hard on that, but it didn't strip it or nothing. It just worked its way off. It's always kind of crazy how that happens. You wonder, well, how can it work a nut off? But it does. But there's a good chance that was not actually fully tightened at the factory. Even though the Wltoys stuff is above average, especially their XK brand, which this says on the box, the quality control in China is just not what we would like to see, unless it's a really, really big brand. You know, Apple, Samsung, certain companies that get stuff made in China, they have their own quality control standards in place. So you just end up with things like that, something not fully tightened. Usually though, it's not a problem. It's a good idea on these. I didn't do it. It's a good idea to check over the nuts and bolts for things like the wheels, things that have a lot of movement, to make sure that nothing's loose. But yeah, overall, I'd probably give this car on a scale of 1 to 5, probably a 4 to 4.5. A little noisy, but really, I mean, I don't think most people care about how noisy a car is compared to a drone. And with just the fact that wheel fell off, even though it was just a nut, and the nut was laying there, I can't give it a 5 just for that. Otherwise, it's fast. It's pretty powerful. I really like that all the metal on it and the shocks seem really nice. It's not like bottoming out and doing anything goofy. And these oil-filled shocks they've been putting on there and stuff just really makes a huge difference on not only how it jumps and lands, but just its overall stability of the car compared to friction shocks. And that metal tray on the bottom, you know, on the bottom, the skid plate and all, I mean, everything's it's nice. You're not going to break it, is what I'm getting at. Yeah, the metal stuff is a little bit heavier than some of the composites or you know, fiberglass or carbon fiber or whatever, but you're not going to break metal very easy. If you break the metal, you're probably going to have a lot more damage to your car than just one thing breaking. Yeah, this is a sharp looking car though. Really nice parts that they used. I can't say 100% well built because the wheel fell off, but again, it looked a lot worse than it was. It was just simply a wheel nut worked its way off, and it may not even do it again, even with me hand tightening it back. It was this outer, I think it was this outer, it was this one right here. I can see that it's, you know, it looks nice and snug. I don't see it working its way off. Something just caused it to do that. So yeah, this is a nice little buggy, especially for the price. It looks sharp. It has just nice parts. It's pretty darn quick. It's got good power. And I really like this controller. It looks a lot like the other Wltoys, but it's a little smaller. I really like this. The foam grip's really comfortable. So the controller works really, really nice. Nice transmitter. You know, this is a nice little buggy. I don't have a lot to say except for unfortunately that wheel falling off. So if you are interested in this buggy, there's a purchase link down in the description. And then, you know, just make sure if you do pick it up that you check the tightness on the nuts on the wheels so that doesn't happen. Or put a drop of blue thread lock on there. But I believe this is around 80 bucks. And I can't complain at that price. You didn't usually get things, especially years ago, that had a metal, oil-filled shocks, ball bearings, and you know, the stuff you just didn't get years ago. So you can't really complain about that. Nice little car that handles well, and it's pretty darn quick. So overall, I'm pretty impressed. And the most important thing is, this is not going to be a difficult brushless upgrade. You probably could spend, if this is 80, let's say, and you could probably get an ESC and moto combo for 30 bucks if you went with the off-brand eBay one, you know, putting you up to 110, and then maybe another $30 you get a transmitter receiver. So what, maybe 140 bucks overall, you would have something brushless. But if you've got some parts laying around like me, and you've got a brushless motor ESC and you got a transmitter, then heck, I mean, it makes even more sense. All right, guys, that wraps up the review of the Wltoys XK 144001 big brushed motor 1/14 scale buggy. Hope you enjoyed this review, and hopefully I get this all cleaned up. Oh, look how dirty it is. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, guys, so you can follow my channel and click the bell so you know whenever I do upload new videos. And as always, guys, Have a wonderful day.
The power of the dark.